Elias's trembling fingers clutched the crumpled divorce papers, salt tears mixing with the lingering coffee scent from his father's favorite mug. The kitchen table, where 3 generations had shared Sunday dinners, now witnessed his devastating betrayal. 23 years of marriage dissolving on the day he buried his dad. Rose-scented drawer sachets his mother had placed decades ago still perfumed the air, dust motes dancing in the dim evening glow as his grandfather clock marked each hollow second. The paper felt ice-cold against his weathered palms, Ivy's signature a cruel slash across their wedding anniversary date. Ever been stabbed in the heart when you're already bleeding? Share your story below, like if betrayal broke you too. Follow for an incredible comeback. His shoulders shook with silent sobs, wedding photo on the nearby counter mocking him with younger, trusting faces. "Not you too, Ivy," he whispered to the empty room, his voice cracking like his faith. Outside, a car door slammed. Someone was coming. The overhead lights flickered as Elias stepped into the funeral parlor's receiving line, his heart already heavy from the morning's kitchen discovery. Mahogany scent, mixed with lilies, creating that sacred atmosphere he'd known since childhood. The polished oak floors creaked under shifting mourners, their whispered condolences echoing off the vaulted ceiling like prayers. Then Ivy approached. Her fingers trembled as she extended the manila envelope, but her eyes held something cold. Not here. Not today. The thought screamed in his mind as he unfolded the papers with shaking hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage stared back at him in black ink, 23 years reduced to legal jargon on the day he buried his father. His knees buckled. The nearby mahogany chair saved him from falling as gasps rippled through the crowd of mourners. "Elias, darlin', Ivy started. "Not here," he whispered, voice cracking like old wood. His cybersecurity mind noticed everything, the calculated timing, the witnesses, the precision of her cruelty. But his heart was breaking in front of half the town. He stumbled toward the bathroom, clutching his father's funeral program like a lifeline. The mirror showed a broken man, tear-streaked face, funeral tie askew, 62 years of trust crumbling in real time. Why today? Why like this? In that small bathroom sanctuary, memories flooded back. Sunday dinners at Dad's table, Ivy laughing at his father's stories, the kids running through sprinklers while Ivy and Dad debated politics on the porch. All of it felt poisoned now. The tears came harder, silent sobs that shook his shoulders, different from the grief he'd carried all week. These burned with betrayal's special sting. He noticed the smudge then. A tear had fallen on the signature line, revealing something odd about the ink. His old mechanic's eye, trained to spot flaws, caught the irregularity. Too fresh, too convenient. Ain't right, this timing. The thought surfaced through his grief. In 40 years of fixing engines and solving problems, he'd learned to trust his instincts. Something about this whole thing felt wrong, calculated. Wiping his eyes with his father's handkerchief, the one with his initials embroidered by Mom decades ago, Elias straightened his tie. The lawyer's words from earlier echoed, "Your father left something specifically for your protection." Maybe Dad had known. Maybe that's why the papers felt so perfectly timed, so precisely cruel. As he prepared to return to the receiving line, a soft knock came at the bathroom door. "Elias, you all right in there?" The voice was familiar but cautious. He paused, hand on the doorknob. Friend or foe? In this moment of raw vulnerability, he couldn't tell anymore. The knock came again, more insistent. Outside, mourners continued their whispered conversations. Inside, Elias Granger, cybersecurity expert, devoted father, grieving son, wiped the last tears from his eyes and prepared to face whatever came next. The trembling in his hands had stopped. Something harder was taking its place. The door handle turned. The knock turned out to be Martha, his longtime assistant, offering quiet condolences before the service. Her worried eyes said more than her words, but Elias managed a nod of thanks. He'd deal with whatever she'd seen later. After the burial, after the casseroles and awkward hugs, Elias returned to an empty house that echoed with absence. The coffee maker still held warmth from morning, back when his biggest worry was eulogizing Dad. Now everything felt different, hollow. He moved through the familiar routine of sorting mail at the kitchen table, where 3 generations had shared Sunday dinners. His fingers paused over a bank envelope marked Urgent Account Action in aggressive red letters. The grandfather clock ticked louder in the silence. Inside the envelope, words jumped out like accusations. Account suspension, insufficient funds, immediate action required. His hands trembled as he read. 40 years of careful savings vanished. Can't be right. He dialed the bank with shaking fingers. The automated voice confirmed his worst fear. Joint accounts frozen, credit cards canceled, mortgage payment bounced, decades of financial security gone overnight. A memory surfaced from happier times, setting up that joint account during their engagement. Ivy's laugh as she practiced writing Mrs. Granger on the signature card. They'd been so young, so trusting. Our future together, she'd whispered, kissing his cheek. The irony tasted bitter now. Elias slumped into Dad's old kitchen chair, feeling the weight of complete financial ruin settling like lead in his chest. And the tears came differently this time, not the sharp shock of the funeral parlor, but a deeper ache. These were tears of exploitation, of trust, systematically destroyed while he'd been caring for his dying father. "How could you, darlin'?" he whispered to the empty kitchen, his voice breaking on the endearment that once meant everything. The yellowed family photos on the refrigerator seemed to mock him. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, anniversaries. All those smiles built on lies. His reflection in the toaster's chrome surface showed a man who'd aged 20 years in one day. Then he noticed something else missing. Ivy's antique jewelry box, the one her grandmother left her, gone from the bedroom dresser, not taken in haste or anger, planned, calculated. His tears dried as suspicion sharpened into something harder. Elias walked to Dad's old filing cabinet, running his fingers along the lock. Fresh scratch marks scored the metal around the keyhole. Someone had been searching, but for what? The kitchen felt colder now, shadows lengthening across the checkered tablecloth as evening settled in. Outside, a car engine started and faded into distance. The grandfather clock chimed the hour, each note emphasizing how alone he'd become. Wiping his eyes with Dad's old handkerchief, Elias Granger, betrayed husband, grieving son, systematically robbed man, headed for his father's den. If someone had been digging through their secrets, maybe it was time to do some digging of his own. The floorboards creaked under his determined steps. The den still smelled like Dad. Old Spice cologne and pipe tobacco lingering in the leather chair that perfectly held his father's shape. Elias sank into it, seeking comfort in the familiar creak of worn springs. The single brass desk lamp cast a warm circle of light, pushing back the evening shadows that seemed to press in from every corner. His father's computer hummed quietly on the old oak desk. Elias had avoided it since the diagnosis, too painful to see Dad's digital life frozen in time. But tonight, with scratch marks on filing cabinets and missing jewelry boxes, he needed answers. The password prompt appeared. Elias hesitated, then tried the family birth date, the one Dad used for everything important. The screen unlocked, revealing a desktop he'd never seen before. There, prominently displayed, was a folder labeled "For Elias Only, Urgent." His breath caught. The timestamp showed Dad had created it just 3 days before he died. "What were you trying to tell me, old man?" With trembling fingers, he clicked it open. The first document made his blood run cold. Suspicious meetings. Ivy Arthur Chen, Financial irregularities noted. Page after page of meticulous notes in Dad's careful handwriting, dating back 6 months. Surveillance photos followed. Ivy and Arthur at coffee shops, restaurants, Arthur's office, all taken with Dad's old telephoto lens. Timestamps, locations, even license plate numbers. His father had been building a case. Then came the audio files. Elias's hands shook as he clicked the first recording. Arthur's voice filled the den. The old man's getting suspicious. We need to move faster on the accounts before he figures it out. Ivy's reply cut like a blade. Don't worry about Elias's father. He won't be a problem much longer. The words hit him like a physical blow. Elias doubled over, a sob ripping from his throat, different from the funeral tears, different from the kitchen grief. These were tears of gratitude mixed with devastating realization. Dad had known. Dad had tried to protect him, even while dying. Oh, Dad, he whispered to the empty room, voice breaking. You knew all along. More files revealed the scope of their planning. College funds emptied, retirement accounts drained, forged signatures on documents he'd never seen. All of it documented with the methodical precision of a man who'd spent his life as an engineer. A final video file waited at the bottom. Dad's gaunt face filled the screen, recorded just days before the end. Son, if you're watching this, then my worst fears have come true. I've tried to warn you, but... His father's voice faded into a coughing fit. Elias clutched the computer screen, tears streaming down his face. Outside, a shadow moved past the window. Quick. Deliberate. Someone was watching the house. The den's warmth suddenly felt like a trap. Elias barely slept. By 2 a.m., he was back in his home office, multiple monitors casting harsh blue light across his tear-stained face. The shadow at the window had vanished when he'd looked again, but the message was clear. They were watching. Well, two could play that game. His cybersecurity expertise, honed over decades of protecting corporate networks, now served a more personal mission. The coffee grew cold as he worked, fingers flying across keyboards with methodical precision. Dad's files were just the beginning. The encryption on the remaining folders broke easily. Dad had used Mom's maiden name as the secondary password. Typical engineer, Dad always had a backup plan. What Elias found made his stomach turn. Spreadsheets detailed the systematic theft spanning 6 months. Sarah's college fund, $47,000, emptied through forged withdrawal forms. Marcus's education account, $35,000, drained via electronic transfers he'd never authorized. His own retirement savings, $340,000, moved to offshore accounts in increments small enough to avoid automatic bank alerts. 40 years of saving, he whispered to the empty office. Gone. But it was the forged documents that triggered his rage. His signature, perfectly replicated on power of attorney papers, dated during Dad's worst hospital days. Days when he'd barely left the ICU. Arthur's handwriting analysis software, the same program Elias had recommended for the company, had been used to practice his signature until it was flawless. The irony burned like acid. His hands shook as he called his cybersecurity team's nightline. Mike, it's Elias. I need a full forensic analysis on some files. Personal matter. No, it can't wait. While Mike worked remotely to verify the evidence, Elias discovered more. Credit cards opened in his name, loans against the house he'd paid off 5 years ago. Even Dad's funeral expenses had been charged to accounts Elias had never seen. They'd been planning this while Dad was dying. While Elias held vigil at the hospital, they'd been forging his life away. The rage built slowly, like pressure in a steam engine. When Arthur's number showed up in recent call logs on Dad's phone, calls made the day before Dad died, something inside Elias snapped. He hit speed dial with trembling fingers. Arthur answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. Elias. Jesus, it's 3 in the morning. What's 23 years, Arthur? The words came out raw, torn from his throat. 23 years of friendship, partnership, trust. How could you? Silence. Then Arthur's voice changed, becoming colder. I don't know what you think you've found, but I found everything. Elias's voice rose to a shout that echoed off the office walls. The accounts, the forgeries, the recordings, everything, you bastard. Arthur's laugh was bitter. You always were too trusting, Elias. Too focused on doing the right thing to see what was right in front of you. Dad knew. He documented everything. Your father was a sick old man seeing conspiracies everywhere. Who's going to believe his paranoid ravings over mine and Ivy's word? The dismissal hit like a slap. Elias gripped the phone so tight his knuckles went white. You threatened him. I heard the recordings. Prove it. Arthur's voice carried a smile now. Good luck with that, old friend. Oh, and Elias, stop harassing my employees. Martha's job depends on her discretion. The line went dead. Elias stared at the phone, chest heaving. Then he hurled it against the wall, watching it shatter into pieces. The sound felt good, too good. His wedding photo stared at him from the desk. Younger faces, hopeful smiles, Ivy in white lace looking like an angel. He'd believed in angels once. How could you do this to us? He whispered to her image, voice breaking. To the kids. To Dad? The monitors flickered as Mike's analysis populated the screens. Every signature confirmed as forgery. Every transfer traced to shell companies. Every theft documented with digital precision that would hold up in any court. But Arthur was right about one thing. Who would believe a grieving widower's accusations against his wife and business partner? Especially when that widower's behavior looked increasingly erratic. The funeral scene, late-night phone calls, paranoid accusations. They'd played this perfectly. A new email pinged on his secure server. Martha's personal account. They're moving faster. Arthur called emergency board meeting for tomorrow. Says you're having a breakdown. I'm trying to help, but I'm scared. They know I talked to you. Elias's blood ran cold. They weren't just stealing his money. They were stealing his company, his reputation, everything he'd built. And Martha, loyal Martha who'd worked for him for 15 years, was caught in the crossfire. Another shadow moved past the window, longer this time, more deliberate. His security cameras showed empty yards, but Elias knew better. Professional surveillance was invisible until it wanted to be seen. Someone was sending a message. We're watching. We know what you know. The rage collapsed into something deeper, colder. Sitting in the blue glow of evidence screens, surrounded by the scattered pieces of his phone and 40 years of betrayed trust, Elias Granger began to plan. They thought they were so clever, playing the long game while he grieved. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated what a man with nothing left to lose could do, and they'd left a trail. In the morning, he'd start following it back to them. Tonight, he'd document everything, every file, every recording, every piece of evidence Dad had died trying to protect. Outside, the shadow moved again. This time, Elias smiled in the darkness. Let them watch. He had work to do. The virus hit at 4:17 a.m. Elias watched in horror as his backup files corrupted one by one, progress bars mocking him as months of evidence vanished into digital oblivion. The attack was sophisticated, military-grade encryption that turned his own security protocols against him. Someone with serious technical resources wanted his proof gone. No, he whispered, frantically trying recovery protocols he'd designed himself. Nothing worked. Dad's careful documentation, the audio recordings, the financial trails, all of it dissolving like salt in rain. By sunrise, 3 years of cybersecurity expertise had been reduced to useless scrambling. Whoever had done this knew his systems better than he did. The doorbell rang at 8 a.m. sharp. Through the peephole, Elias saw his children standing together on the porch, Sarah clutching her purse like armor, Marcus with his jaw set in that stubborn line he'd inherited from his mother. They'd never visited together since Dad's diagnosis. Never. His heart hammered as he opened the door. "Dad." Sarah's voice was carefully controlled, but her eyes were red-rimmed. "We need to talk." They filed into the living room like a tribunal. Marcus wouldn't meet his eyes. Sarah perched on the edge of Dad's old recliner, tissues already in her hand. "This has to stop," she began, voice wavering. "Mom told us about your accusations, about the phone calls, the harassment." "Harassment? Sarah, honey, if you'd just listen." "No." Marcus finally looked up, and Elias saw Ivy's cold calculation in his son's eyes. "We've listened enough. You served Mom divorce papers at Grandpa's funeral." "At his funeral, Dad." The words hit like physical blows. "I never. She served me. Don't lie to us." Sarah's composure cracked, tears spilling over. "We were there. We saw you humiliate her in front of everyone." Elias felt the room spinning. This was wrong. All wrong. "Kids, please. Your mother and Arthur have been stealing from us, from your college funds." "Stop it!" Marcus shot to his feet, face flushed with anger. "Just stop with the paranoid conspiracy theories. Mom showed us the bank statements." "You've been hiding assets, moving money around behind her back." "That's impossible. I would never—" "We saw the documents, Dad." Sarah's voice broke completely. "Your signature on accounts we'd never heard of. Secret transfers while Grandpa was dying. The forged papers. Of course. They'd shown the kids the forged evidence while destroying the real proof." Elias reached for his laptop to show them the files. Then remembered. Everything was gone. "I can explain if you'll just—" "No more explanations!" Marcus's shout echoed off the walls. "No more lies. Mom's been covering for you, trying to protect your reputation, but we can see what's happening." Sarah stood up, wobbling slightly. "Dad, we think you need help. Professional help. The grief, the paranoia, these wild accusations." "I'm not paranoid!" The words came out too loud, too desperate. "Your mother is stealing everything we've worked for." "She and Arthur have been planning this for months." His children exchanged the look. The look that said, "See, we told you he's lost it." "Dad." Sarah's voice turned gentle, therapeutic. "We love you, but you're scaring us. These fantasies about Mom and Mr. Chen." "They're not fantasies." Elias grabbed for his destroyed phone, then realized how that looked. "I had proof, recordings, documents." "Where?" Marcus spread his hands. "Where's this proof, Dad? Because all we see is a man who's been acting erratic since Grandpa died." The truth hit him like a sledgehammer. Without the evidence, without Dad's files, he had nothing. Just the word of a grieving widower against his wife and business partner, against his own children. "Please," he whispered, voice breaking. "Please just trust me. I'm your father." Sarah's tears flowed freely now. "That's what makes this so hard. You are our father, but you're not acting like the man who raised us. We've talked to Dr. Martinez," Marcus added quietly. "He says trauma can cause delusions, paranoid episodes." "I'm not delusional!" But even as he said it, Elias could hear how it sounded. The desperate edge, the wild-eyed insistence. This was how crazy people talked. "We can't watch you destroy yourself," Sarah said, standing to leave. "And we won't let you destroy Mom." "Kids, please." "Get help, Dad." Marcus paused at the door. "Real help. Until you do, we can't be around you." The front door closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot. Elias stood in his empty living room, surrounded by family photos that suddenly felt like mockery. The grandfather clock ticked away seconds of his isolation. Outside, a car started and drove away, taking his children, his last allies, with it. He collapsed into Dad's chair, and for the first time since childhood, Elias Granger sobbed like a broken man. Not the sharp tears of shock or the hot tears of rage, but the deep, heaving sobs of complete defeat. His whole body shook with them, each breath a struggle against the weight crushing his chest. Maybe they're right, he thought through the despair. Maybe I am losing my mind. The evidence was gone. His children thought he was delusional. Martha was too frightened to help. The FBI would never believe him now, not after this morning's performance. 40 years of building a reputation, raising a family, creating a life, all of it crumbling because he couldn't prove what he knew to be true. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Not his phone. That was shattered. Martha's emergency phone, the one she'd given him for secure communications. Through blurred vision, he read the message. Emergency board meeting moved to today. They're voting you out. Arthur has the votes. I'm sorry. The heaving sobs came harder now, doubling him over until his forehead touched his knees. This was how they'd planned it. Isolate him, destroy his credibility, turn his own children against him, then move in for the kill while he was defenseless. He was 62 years old, sitting alone in his father's chair, crying like a child while everything he'd ever loved was stolen from under him. The house creaked around him, settling into afternoon shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Normal sounds of a normal world that no longer included him. Betrayal hit you when you needed family most. Share your heartbreak below, like if this shatters you, follow for his incredible comeback. Can wisdom triumph over calculated cruelty? But as the sobs gradually subsided into hiccuping breaths, Elias noticed something. The secure phone buzzed again. Anonymous sender. Message. Your father would be proud of your perseverance. Check your email. Trembling fingers opened his encrypted account, the one only 3 people knew about. The email was simple. Truth has many guardians. The vault downtown, box 847. Password, Elias. The righteous. Your father prepared for this day. A friend. Through his tears, Elias began to smile. Maybe the war wasn't over after all. The drive downtown felt like a funeral procession, slow, solemn, weighted with the gravity of last chances. Elias gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles. The anonymous message burned into his memory. Your father prepared for this day. Box 847 at First National's vault facility. A place Elias had never known existed in his father's careful, methodical life. The bank manager, Mrs. Henderson, had known Dad for 40 years. Her sympathetic smile couldn't hide the worry in her eyes as she led Elias through the security protocols. Your father was very specific about the access instructions, she said quietly. Very specific indeed. The vault's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as they descended into the basement level. Safety deposit boxes lined the walls like small metal tombs, each holding someone's most precious secrets. Box 847 sat in the corner, larger than most, secured with a lock that looked military-grade. Password? Mrs. Henderson asked, though her tone suggested she already knew this was bigger than a simple inheritance. Elias the Righteous, he said, feeling foolish. Dad's old nickname for him, from when Elias was 8 and refused to keep $1 he'd found on the playground. The lock disengaged with a solid click. Inside lay manila folders organized with engineer's precision, each labeled in Dad's careful block lettering. But it was the letter on top, marked Read First, when hope is gone, that made Elias's hands tremble. Son, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. Ivy and Arthur have made their move, and you're probably feeling like the whole world has turned against you. I know that feeling. I felt it when your mother was dying and I couldn't save her. But you're not alone. You never were. I've been documenting their conspiracy for 8 months. The files in this box contain everything. Backup recordings they don't know exist, financial trails traced through multiple banks, witness statements from people they thought they'd silenced. Martha Rodriguez has been helping me. She's scared, but she's loyal. Trust her. Agent Rebecca Santos, FBI Financial Crimes Division, has been my contact. Call her directly. She's been building a federal case and needs your cooperation to finish it. Most importantly, your children know. Sarah and Marcus came to me 3 weeks before I died. They'd figured out some of Ivy's plan and were scared for you. I told them to play along, to make Ivy think they believed her lies. They've been gathering evidence from the inside. They love you, son. Never doubt that. Your mother always said you had the strongest heart of anyone she knew. Use that strength now. Use it to fight back. The password for the encrypted files is righteousness always wins. Love always, Dad, P.S. Check the bottom compartment. Your grandfather's service pistol is there, legally registered to you as of last month. I pray you won't need it, but a man has a right to protect his family. Tears streamed down Elias's face, not the heaving sobs of despair, but tears of profound relief and gratitude. His children hadn't betrayed him. They'd been protecting him. With shaking hands, he opened the first folder. Audio recordings with federal evidence tags, bank documents traced through 3 states, witness statements from other victims. A whole network of elderly targets Arthur and Ivy had been systematically robbing. "Oh, Dad," he whispered to the vault's silence. "You beautiful, paranoid, wonderful old man." His secure phone buzzed. Sarah's number. The first time she'd called since the confrontation. "Dad?" Her voice was thick with emotion. We just got word about the board meeting. Are you okay?" The careful tone was gone. This was his daughter, really his daughter, not the scripted performance from this morning. "I'm more than okay, sweetheart. I found Grandpa's gift." "Thank God." She started crying. "Dad, I'm so sorry about this morning. We had to make it convincing. Mom's been watching us, listening to our calls. Marcus and I have been pretending to believe her while gathering evidence." "I know, honey. Grandpa told me." We documented everything we could from the inside. The fake board meeting agenda, the forged psychiatric evaluation reports, even recordings of Mom coaching us on what to say to you. Marcus's voice came through on speaker. "Dad, we never doubted you. Not for a second. But we had to play the long game, just like Grandpa taught us." The relief was overwhelming. Elias sank onto the vault's small bench, clutching the phone like a lifeline. "Where are you now?" "Safe house," Sarah said. "Agent Santos has been protecting us since yesterday. Dad, there's something else. Martha's okay. They tried to fire her this morning, but Agent Santos arrested Arthur before he could clean house." "Arthur's arrested?" "Financial fraud, identity theft, conspiracy. The federal charges just keep coming. They raided his office 2 hours ago." The vault suddenly felt warmer, brighter. Elias looked at the remaining files with new eyes. This wasn't just evidence. This was justice, carefully prepared and patiently assembled by a dying man who refused to let evil win. "What about your mother?" Silence. Then Marcus. "Agent Santos says they need more evidence for the conspiracy charges against Mom. The financial crimes are mostly in Arthur's name. She was smart about staying in the shadows." "But we have everything now," Sarah added quickly. "Grandpa's files, our recordings, the federal investigation. She can't hurt you anymore, Dad, Mrs." And Henderson cleared her throat gently. "Mr. Granger, Agent Santos is here. She'd like to speak with you." A tall woman in a crisp FBI jacket entered the vault. her presence immediately commanding respect. "Mr. Granger, I'm Agent Rebecca Santos. Your father was a remarkable man. His evidence has been the foundation of our entire case." She gestured to the files. "What you're holding represents 8 months of meticulous investigation. Your father contacted us when he first suspected the conspiracy. We've been building the federal case ever since. Why didn't he tell me? He wanted to protect you, and frankly, we needed someone on the inside who could act naturally. Your grief was real, your reactions authentic. It made their confidence grow, made them sloppy." Agent Santos pulled out her own folder. "Arthur Chen was arrested 3 hours ago. We have enough evidence to put him away for 20 years. Mrs. Granger is in custody for questioning, though her charges may be lighter due to plea negotiations. The children are safe and have been cooperating fully. Your son Marcus has a natural talent for surveillance, by the way. The recordings he made are admissible in court." Elias laughed, for the first time in weeks. The sound echoed off the vault walls like music. "Dad always said Marcus was sneaky. Your father saved not just your family, Mr. Granger. This conspiracy extended to 12 other elderly victims across 3 states. Your evidence will help us recover nearly $2 million in stolen assets." The weight of the last few days began lifting from his shoulders. Not just the money, not just the vindication, but the profound relief of knowing he wasn't alone. He'd never been alone. "There's one more thing," Agent Santos said with a small smile. "Your board meeting. It never happened. We arrested Arthur before he could call it. Your company is safe, your reputation intact. Martha? Back at work, probably fielding congratulations calls about now. She's been our inside source for months." Elias closed his eyes, feeling the last of the despair drain away. When he opened them, the vault looked different, not like a tomb, but like a treasury, a place where love and wisdom had been stored against the darkest day. "Agent Santos," he said, standing straighter than he had in months. "What do you need from me?" "Just your testimony, Mr. Granger, and maybe dinner with your children. They've been worried sick about you." As they left the vault, Elias carried Dad's letter in his shirt pocket over his heart. The old man's voice seemed to whisper in the fluorescent-lit hallway. "Righteousness always wins, son, always." Outside, Sarah and Marcus waited by a black SUV, their faces bright with tears and relief. For the first time since the funeral, Elias Granger felt like coming home. The courthouse steps gleamed in the morning light, marble worn smooth by decades of justice seekers. Elias stood at the bottom, Dad's letter still pressed against his heart, watching early commuters hurry past with their coffee and briefcases. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that today would reshape his entire world. Agent Santos had arranged everything with federal precision. Ivy would be brought from holding for a final plea negotiation. One last chance to confess and cooperate before the full weight of federal charges crushed what remained of her future. His children flanked him like bodyguards. Sarah squeezed his arm. "You ready for this, Dad?" "As ready as I'll ever be, darling." Marcus checked his phone. "Agent Santos says Mom's lawyer is pushing for a deal. Reduced charges in exchange for testimony against Arthur." The irony wasn't lost on Elias. Even now, Ivy was calculating angles, looking for the best outcome for herself. Some things never changed. Ready for justice after ultimate betrayal? Comment your hope for truth, like for courage in confrontation, follow for explosive revelation. Will family heal or shatter forever in justice's bright light? Dad? Sarah's voice carried a nervous tremor. "Are you sure you want to see her? You don't have to do this face to face." Elias pulled Dad's photograph from his wallet, the same one he'd carried since the funeral. The old man's eyes seemed to sparkle with approval. "I need to hear her say it. Need to hear her admit what she did to our family." The courthouse doors opened. and Agent Santos emerged with a small entourage. Federal prosecutors, defense attorneys, and finally, Ivy. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The designer clothes had been replaced with county jail orange, her perfect hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. But when her eyes met Elias's across the courthouse plaza, he saw the same cold calculation that had served divorce papers at his father's funeral. "Mr. Granger," Agent Santos called. "We're ready." As they climbed the marble steps, Elias felt the weight of every choice that had led to this moment. The late nights at Dad's bedside, the trust he'd placed in a woman who'd shared his bed for 23 years, the children who'd risked everything to protect him. "Whatever happens in there," he told Sarah and Marcus, "I want you to know how proud Grandpa would be. How proud I am." "We love you, Dad," Marcus said simply. The courthouse doors swung open to reveal polished corridors and the machinery of justice. Somewhere in those halls, the truth would finally have its day. Elias straightened his shoulders, the same shoulders that had carried his dying father, built a cybersecurity empire, and weathered the worst betrayal of his life. Today, those shoulders would carry him toward vindication. Behind him, the morning sun cast long shadows on the courthouse steps. Ahead lay justice. The conference room's polished table reflected the fluorescent lights like a mirror of truth. Ivy sat across from Elias, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the mahogany and brass that surrounded them. Her lawyer, a nervous young man who kept adjusting his tie, shuffled papers with the desperation of someone drowning in evidence. Agent Santos placed the first file on the table. "Mrs. Granger, we have audio recordings of you and Mr. Chen discussing the systematic theft of your husband's assets." Ivy's chin lifted defiantly. "I don't know what you think you heard, but—" Your father-in-law's voice played from hidden speakers. "The old man's getting suspicious. We need to move faster on the accounts before he figures it out." Then Ivy's own voice, cold as winter. "Don't worry about Elias's father. He won't be a problem much longer." The color drained from Ivy's face. Her lawyer leaned forward. "Agent Santos, my client is prepared to cooperate fully in exchange for—" "No deals," Agent Santos said firmly. "Not anymore." File after file emerged. Bank records showing systematic theft, forged documents bearing Elias's signature, witness statements from 12 other elderly victims across 3 states. Each piece of evidence landed like a hammer blow. But it was Sarah's recording that broke Ivy completely. "This is from last Tuesday," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her tears. "When you thought I was asleep." Ivy's voice filled the room, slurred with wine and arrogance. "Your father's weak, Sarah. Always has been. All that righteousness, all that honor, it made him easy to fool. 23 years of marriage, and he never suspected a thing." Elias watched his wife, his former wife, crumble before his eyes. The mask of victimhood slipped away, revealing the predator underneath. "How could you?" he asked quietly. "The kids' college funds?" "Dad's funeral expenses charged to secret accounts. While I was holding vigil at his deathbed, you were stealing our future." Ivy's eyes flashed with the old venom. "You want to know how? Because you were so busy being the perfect son, the perfect husband, the perfect everything. You never saw what was right in front of you." "I saw love," Elias replied. "I saw the woman I thought I'd married." "That woman never existed." Ivy's laugh was bitter. "She was just a role I played, and you were so desperate to believe in her you made it easy." Agent Santos stood. "Ivy Granger, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent." The handcuffs clicked with finality. Sarah and Marcus moved to flank their father, creating a wall of family unity that Ivy could never break again. Through the conference room windows, Elias could see the courthouse plaza where he'd stood this morning, uncertain and afraid. Now, watching federal agents lead his betrayer away in chains, he felt something he hadn't experienced in months: peace. "It's over, Dad," Marcus whispered. "No," Elias said, tears of vindication streaming down his face. "It's just beginning." Justice had been served. His family was whole. And somewhere in heaven, he knew Dad was smiling. 6 months later, the oak tree's branches swayed gently over Dad's headstone, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow across the polished granite. Elias knelt to arrange the fresh roses, Dad's favorite, while Sarah and Marcus placed their own handwritten letters beside the flowers. "Grandpa would have loved seeing Arthur in that orange jumpsuit," Marcus said with a grin that reminded Elias so much of his father. 22 years in federal prison, justice served. "And Mom?" Sarah asked quietly. 12 years, with possibility of parole in 8, Elias replied. "Agent Santos says she'll likely serve the full term." Elder Fraud doesn't earn much sympathy from parole boards. The cemetery was peaceful at golden hour, birds singing their evening songs as the day wound toward a close. Elias ran his hand along Dad's headstone, feeling the warmth that the sun had left in the granite. "We did it, Dad," he whispered. "The company's stronger than ever. National recognition for cybersecurity excellence. The kids' college funds are restored and expanded with the recovered assets. Even helped those other 12 families get their money back." Sarah squeezed his shoulder. "Tell him about the foundation." Elias smiled, pulling out a folded newspaper clipping. "The Granger Foundation for Elder Protection. We've already helped investigate 6 more financial fraud cases. Turns out there's a whole network of predators targeting folks our age." "Grandpa's legacy," Marcus added. "Protecting people even after he's gone." The evening breeze carried the scent of roses and fresh grass. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed the hour. Normal sounds of a normal world that had room for justice, for healing, for second chances at happiness. "I got something in the mail yesterday," Elias said, pulling out an envelope. "From another family in Arizona. Their grandfather was targeted by a similar scheme. They heard about our case and want help." "Will we take it?" Sarah asked. Elias looked at Dad's photo, permanently etched in the granite alongside Mom's. 2 people who'd taught him that righteousness wasn't just about doing right. It was about fighting for others who couldn't fight for themselves. "What do you think Dad would say?" "He'd say get to work," Marcus laughed. "But first, take time to heal." The tears came then, peaceful tears, different from all the others. Not tears of shock or rage or despair, but tears of completion, of a life rebuilt stronger than before, of a family that had weathered the worst storm and emerged closer than ever. As they walked toward the cemetery gates, the setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Elias carried Dad's letter in his shirt pocket, over his heart, where it would stay. Behind them, the oak tree's leaves rustled in the evening wind, sounding almost like whispered approval. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new families to help, new purposes to pursue. Tonight, Elias Granger was simply a man at peace with his world, walking home with his children under a sky full of promise. Folks, you've sat in that quiet kitchen at 3 in the morning, haven't you? Coffee growing cold in your hands while your heart wrestles with a truth you never wanted to face. Maybe it was a letter that didn't feel right, or a phone call that came at the wrong time, or just that nagging feeling that the person you trusted most was keeping secrets. You know that ache, darling. We all do. Betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from those closest to our hearts. Trust breaks like old wood, sudden, sharp, leaving splinters that catch you for months afterward. In your own den, surrounded by family photos and memories of better times, you felt that crack, ain't you? The moment when everything you believed about someone crumbles like autumn leaves. The tears come different then, not just sadness, but the bone-deep hurt of discovering that love you thought was real was just an act. But here's what I've learned watching folks like Elias find their way through the darkness. You're tougher than you know. That wisdom you've earned through decades of living, it's not just for show. Those instincts that whisper, something ain't right, they're gifts wrapped in years of experience. When the young ones dismiss your concerns, when the world tries to make you feel foolish or paranoid, remember this: your gut knows things your heart don't want to believe. From that kitchen table where you've cried over broken promises, you can find your way to the front porch where peace lives. The same hands that trembled, opening devastating news, can steady themselves around a warm coffee mug at sunrise. The same eyes that wept reading lies can clear enough to spot truth when it finally comes calling. Dignity don't die easy in folks like us. It just goes underground for a while, waiting for the right moment to stand tall again. So when betrayal knocks you down, and it might, darling, it might, remember that every storm runs out of rain eventually. Your legacy, your family, your self-respect, they're worth fighting for. You've weathered harder winters than this and come out breathing. Under that same sky that's watched you raise children, bury parents, and build a life worth living, you'll find your strength again. One more tear for what was lost, then a smile for what can still be saved. Trust your heart, folks. It's stronger than you think,